SIA Certifications is a leading global certification body offering management system certifications, training services to the organization to more than 50 plus countries. Headquartered in Gurgaon, India, SIA Certifications is committed in helping organizations enhance their credibility, improve operational efficiency, and demonstrate compliance with international standards. We are accredited by internationally recognized bodies from USA, that is IEC and UF, which stands for International Accreditation Services and United Accreditation Foundation. We are also exemplar global certified for our training services. Our core services on which we work are ISO management system certifications, for example ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, ISO 27001, ISO 22000, ISO 13485, ISO 37001, and many more other standards. We also provide training programs for lead auditor, for internal auditor, for lead implementer that is aligned with ISO standards. We also work with compliance and system audits. We support in third-party certifications. SIA Certifications serves a wide range of industries including manufacturing, construction, healthcare, food processing, hospitality, IT, education, logistics, finance, and energy. It also supports sectors such as automotive, pharmaceutical, agriculture, real estate, and environmental services, along with professional services like consultancy, facility management, and manpower supply. Government bodies like NGOs, telecommunication, and e-commerce companies also rely on SIA certifications for ISO standards that enhances quality, safety, security, and operational efficiency across global market. SIA certifications is built on a core value of integrity, impartiality, customer focus, emphasis honest, fair, and reliable certifications services. They emphasize competency through continuous learning and enhances innovation to stay current. The company is accountable to protect the confidentiality of the customers and is committed to provide sustainable and responsible business practices.
Welcome to all, and today's class is about the webinar is about the ISO IEC 17025, that is 2017 version. It is for the general requirement for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories. So for the laboratory accreditation, what is the need of laboratory accreditation? It is giving a ready means for customers to find reliable testing and calibration services in order to meet their demands. The demand means the customer demands. The laboratory accreditation enhances customer confidence in accepting the testing and calibration reports issued by the accredited laboratories. That is, it gives the customer confidence by the laboratory by getting the accreditations from the accreditation body. After that reports which is released by the laboratories, it is getting an added value. Okay, what is the difference between the certification and accreditation? Actually, certification is for, we know that certification for ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, like the way it is called certifications. But in the case of laboratories, testing laboratories or accreditation calibration laboratory, it is not like certification, it is called as accredited laboratories. So what is the difference between certification and accreditation? The procedure by which a third party means that is a certification body, gives a written assurance that a product or processes or services to conform to specified requirements like ISO 9001. Those all are called certification bodies, and that is certification. And it assures the client that the organization has in place an effective quality of management systems and does not confer technical credibility of the test results. That is, certifications or does not confer technical credibility of the test results. In case of accreditations, procedure by which an authoritative body, that is accreditation body like NABL or IAS or QAI or IQAS, FDAS, these type of accreditation bodies, they are giving a formal recognitions that a body, that is a laboratory, or a person means authorized signatories, they are competent to carry out specific tasks. What all are the specific tasks? According to 17025, it is an testing activity, or it is an calibration activity, or it is an sampling activity before the testing. So it assures the client that the procedures and test results are technically valid, and it recognizes the technical competence of the laboratory staffs. They are competent or not. Endorses that the laboratory operates the management system effectively. These all are the accreditation. This is called accreditation, and as per 17025, it is applicable to 17025 testing laboratories, calibration laboratories, or if it is involved in the sampling process. So how the accreditation starts, that is 17025 accreditation starts in India. Earlier in the World War time, test house scheme, it was started in the Australia in the period of 1943. In between after that, during the 1981, it is started in India like NCTCF. It was the accreditation body started for giving accreditations to testing and laboratories. Before NABL, it was named as NCTCF. In 1981, it was started. In the 1992, the NCTCF was renamed to NABL, that is National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories. So this is the first accreditation body in India. So what about NABL? Who is the NABL? NABL was the National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories, very well-known accreditation body with its accreditation system established in accordance with the ISO IEC 17011. That is, it is an autonomous body registered with under Society Act, under the aegis of Department of Science and Technology, that is DST, and enables and constituent board of Quality Council of India, that is QCI, independently under the chairman of board. And the program started in 1981 as NCTCF, that is National Coordination of Testing and Calibration Facilities, and it is renamed as a NABL, and from the NABL, the first accreditation granted in 1992. So, except NABL, who all are the accreditation bodies nowadays in India? Actually, in India and international, there are many players. In India, there are 4 full member of ILAC and APAC members, accreditation bodies, that is accreditation bodies, who all are giving the accreditations to testing calibration laboratories. So, NABL, National Accreditation Board for Testing and Calibration Laboratories, QAI, Quality and Accreditation Institute, FDIS, Federation for Development of Accreditation Services, IQAS, International Quality and Accreditation Services. These all are the 4 Indian accreditation bodies. Nowadays, they are giving accreditations to testing and calibration laboratories. Except this, there are other international accreditation bodies also. There are IAS, there are ATLA, like the way international accreditation bodies also, they are involved in the Indian accreditation. About the accreditation standards, what all are the accreditation standards accreditation bodies are giving accreditations to testing laboratories? It is testing and calibration laboratories, the standard applicable for the testing and calibration laboratories is ISO IEC 17021, 17025, that is 2017. And for the medical laboratories, it is accredited for ISO 15189 2022. For the proficiency testing for the PT providers, the standard is ISO IEC 17043 and the version is 2023. For the reference materials, that is RM producers, RMP, the standard is ISO 17034 and the version is 2016. These all are the 4 standards. Normally, the accreditation bodies are giving accreditations. And what is the benefit of ISO IEC 17025 2017 accreditation? What all are the benefits laboratories can get? It is national international recognition of their testing or calibration certificates, and if the management system is well established, there no need to do the retesting many times. So it is a reduced cost of retesting and better control over the laboratory operations. If the system is established according to the 17025, then their operational controls are well established, well controlled, and it gives an increased confidence in the testing or calibration activities. And the question about the validity of test results and validity of the test methods, reliability of test data, it is increased. So these all are the major benefits once the the laboratory is established their 17025 in their laboratory means these all are the benefits for the laboratories. What is ISO IEC 17025 2017? So it is a general requirement. The standard is, it is a general requirement for the competence of testing and calibration laboratories. So in this standard, there are eight major classes. The first class starts with scope, the second class is normative references, and the third is terms and definitions, fourth one is general requirements, and the fifth one is structural requirements, sixth one is the resource requirements, and seventh one is the process requirements, and eighth one is the management system requirements. So in the out of 8 classes, the standard starts with the scope. Scope is nothing but the laboratory, what activity they are going to do. What is the test parameter they are going to do? What is the product they are going to test? These all are to be documented in the scope. That is, the document specifies the general requirements for the competence, impartiality, and consistent operation of the laboratories. They have to define what all are the activities they are going to do, who is the persons who are doing the activities. This document is applicable to all organizations performing laboratory activities regardless of the number of personnel. It is not meaning that it need minimum 10 persons or it is minimum 100 persons. It is regardless of number of personnel, it is applicable to all the laboratories. Laboratory customers, regulatory authorities, organizations, and schemes using peer assessments, accreditation bodies, and others uses this document in confirming or recognizing the competence of laboratories. This is about the scope. In the scope, the laboratory should maintain what all are the activities they are going to perform. Normative reference, in the normative references, it is guided to ISO IEC Guide 99 is referred in this normative references, and they are using ISO IEC 17000, that is confirmatory assessment, vocabulary, and general principles. These all are the 2 standards. It is mainly given. In the terms and definitions part, that is in the class 3, in the terms and definitions part, it starts with impartiality. Impartiality means during the activity of the laboratory activities, that is, it is testing or it is in calibration, the activity should be free from the conflict of interest. The person should work without bias. That is called as impartiality. So the laboratories maintains the impartiality, freedom from bias, lack of prejudice. The person should be neutral. So these all are the terms and definitions for the impartiality. And for the complaint is expression of dissatisfaction by the customer or any person or any organizations to a laboratory. That is complaint, it is given in the terms and definitions. In intra-laboratory comparisons, there are 2 points. One is inter-laboratory comparison, one is intra-laboratory comparison. And the inter-laboratory comparison, organization, performance, and evaluations of measurements of test on the same or similar items by 2 or more laboratories, it is called as inter-laboratory. In the intra-laboratory comparisons, organizations, performance, and evaluations of measurements are tested on the same or similar items within the same organizations. That is, intra-laboratory is between the laboratories, 2 or more laboratories. Inter-laboratories within the laboratory. So proficiency testing, that is PT, evaluation of participation of performance of against the pre-established criteria by means of the inter-laboratory comparisons. This is the terms given for the PT. And what is laboratory? According to this standard, the laboratory is defined as a body that performs one or more of the following activities, whether it is testing or whether it is calibration or whether it is sampling associated with subsequent testing or calibration. That is called a laboratory. For the decision rule that describes how measurement uncertainty is encountered, that is accounted for when stating conformity with their specified requirements. The verification and validation. In the verification, provision of objective evidence that a given item that fulfills specified requirements. In the validation, verification of where the specified requirements are adequate for an intended use. These all are the terms and definitions which is mentioned in the ISO 17025. So according to whatever ISO standards, class 1, 2, 3, it is not changing. One is scope, 2 is normative references, and third is the terms and definitions. In the 17025, the classes are starts with 4. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the major classes. In the fourth class, it is general requirements. In this general requirements, it is mentioning about the confidentiality and impartiality. So the laboratories should follow, they have to document how they are maintaining their confidentiality, and how they are maintaining the impartiality, how they are giving the services in an impartial manner. So in the class 4.4, it is a general requirement, it is impartiality and confidentiality. Class 4.1 starts with impartiality. 4.1.1 to 4.1.5, it is talking about the impartiality. So identifying and addressing the risk to impartiality, it is an ongoing basis. It is not an one-time activity laboratory has to do. It is an ongoing activity. So it is daily basis they have to identify it, regular basis they have to identify the impartiality. The laboratory management shall be committed to impartiality. Code of conduct of laboratory officials should be in place and practiced effectively. The laboratory management shall not allow commercial, financial or other pressure to compromise in impartiality. That is nothing but the laboratory technical personnel should not be give financial pressure, that is 10 lakh per month or 100 samples per day or 10 samples per person. These all are the commercial or financial pressures. So this type of pressure should not compromise the quality of the test results. And in the class 4.2 talks about the confidentiality. The class 4.2.1 to 4.2.4 talks about the confidentiality. So laboratory has whatever details received from the customers, the laboratory should keep all the results confidential. And one more point, if any regulatory body asking the laboratory to share the customer results to the regulatory body, laboratory has to share the results. In case of adverse results, the laboratory should inform to the customer, that is customer, that we were shared your details to the regulatory. So not that is regulatory prohibits the same. If the regulatory prohibits not to share, then the laboratory should not share. Otherwise, the details are shared to the regulatory body, then the laboratory should inform to the customer. These are the confidentiality requirements. It is mentioned in the 4.2 class. Any adverse information about the customer obtained from other sources, that is social media or in the web page or through complaints, it should be kept confidential. And in the class 5 talks about the structural requirement, how the top management has to be taking the responsibilities, duties, how it is maintaining the management system, those types. So 5.1 to 5.7 talks about the structural requirement. In the structural requirement, it includes the legal entity. That is, the laboratory should part of a legal entity, or it is a legal entity, or it is a part of a bigger, larger organization. That is legal entity. And key managerial persons. The class structural requirements, it needs the laboratory should document the key managerial persons. And the scope of accreditation, subcontracting, if any, it has to be mentioned, it has to be documented. Activities carried out at permanent or temporary or mobile facilities. The laboratory should document whether they are doing the activity in a permanent location, or they are doing in the mobile location, or they are doing in the temporary locations. Those type of points to be documented in this class. So structure of organization, that is organization chart of parent organization and chart of lab, roles and responsibilities of all officials that is involved in the laboratory testing or calibration activities should be documented. And whatever the roles and responsibilities documented, it has to be communicated in an effective way to all the personnel who all are involved in the testing or calibration activities. So in the class 6, the class 6 talks about the resource requirements. So class 6 and 7 is the major classes. It is a critical classes in the 17025. In the class 6, there are 6 classes. 6.1 talks about the general requirements, general resource requirements, that is 6.2 talks about the personal requirements. 6.3 talks about the facilities and environmental conditions which is required for the particular laboratory or particular calibration activity. And 6.4 talks about the equipments which is needed for their testing or calibration activities. 6.5 talks about the metrological traceability. And 6.6 is for the externally provided products and services. So these all are the 6 class. It is covered in the resource requirement. In the 6.1, the laboratory should have all the personnel, that is, whatever activities the laboratory is going to provide, for that all the personnel should be available. The facilities should be available. The equipments, according to their scope means nothing but on testing or calibration. Based on that scope and calibration, they should have available equipments. The system and support services to manage and perform all the lab activities. It is the general requirement it is asking in the resource requirements. If we are talking about the 6.2 class, that is the personal class, it is talks about the how the personals, all the personnel should be competent. Competent means the personnel should fulfill the educational requirement, education, qualification, training, skill, technology, everything, whatever activities the laboratory persons are conducting, all the personnels, the activities should be identified based on the activities, the qualification, education, training, experience, skill, everything has to be documented. That is, competence criteria, competence requirements, competence matrix has to be established. Apart from this, in the personal class, how the management, that is laboratory management, is going to recruit the persons, that is HR activities are covered in this 6.2 class. How they are selecting the personnel, how they are training the personnel, how they are evaluating the personnel. The training is okay. After the training, how they are evaluating the personnel. After evaluation, the person is meeting the competence requirement or not. If the person is not meeting the competence requirements, then what the laboratory will do. So that type of documentation, the procedure, how we are going to do the testing activity, how we are going to do the training, everything has to be documented according to the 6.2 class. So who is monitoring, who is supervising, those type of activities, everything has to be documented in the 6.2 class. In the 6.3 class, it is talks about the facilities and environmental conditions. Facilities and environmental conditions, facilities is talking about the, if the laboratory is performing drinking water as well as the effluent testing also. The same test, the products, that is drinking water and effluent testing, cannot be conducted in the same premises, same place, same area. So accordingly, effective separation has to be provided. That is called facilities. If the laboratory is doing the purity analysis as well as the residue analysis, effective separations has to be provided. Mechanical testing as well as the chemical testing as well as the biological testing. So effective separations has to be provided. These all are the main requirements. So the facilities shall be suitable for the lab activities and shall not adversely affect the validity of the test results. This is the requirement. So accordingly, the lab has to plan. It should not cross contaminations. They should avoid the cross contaminations. So microbial contaminations, dust, electromagnetic disturbances, radiation, humidity, electrical supply, temperature, sound and vibrations. These all are the identified points. So the effective facilities has to be established by the management to effectively work the test, get the test results. It should not affect any of the points. Should not affect adversely. It will not give the it will not adversely affect the validity of the results. It also includes the provision of safety aspects, that is fire extinguishers, gloves, safer dispensing devices, eye servers, head servers. It is according to the lab to decide what all are the activities they are going to do. Accordingly, the safety provisions has to be provided. And 6.4 talk about the equipment. In the equipment part, it is not only the machineries, that is testing equipments. In this class, it also includes the software, measuring standards, that is reference standards, reference materials, reference data, reagents, consumables, auxiliary apparatus. Everything is considered here as an equipment only, according to 17025. And in the metrological traceability, that is class 6.5, But metrological traceability is nothing but if the laboratory is calibrating their equipment, the metrological traceability has to be established. That is unbroken chain of calibration. They have to avail the calibration with a competent calibration agency. So then only the unbroken chain will be established. Labs will establish and maintain metrological traceability of its measurement results by means of a documented unbroken chain of calibrations. So then only we can calculate the measurement uncertainty. So that is the point, they have to establish the metrological traceability. And 6.6 is talks about the externally provided products and services, which is used by the laboratory for the testing or calibration activities. For example, what all are the products, what all are the services? According to 6.6, it is for the example purpose I have given in the table, that is measurement standards, auxiliary equipments, consumable materials, reference materials. These all are called as externally provided products. And when compared with externally provided products, what all are the services? That is calibration services, sampling services, testing services, facility and equipment maintenance services, that is nothing but an AMC, annual maintenance, and proficiency testing providers, PT providers, assessment and auditing services. Why assessment and auditing services? If the laboratory avails their internal audit from external persons, then that external person has to be evaluated. That person should meet the requirements of the 6.6 according to 17025. So this is the main class, that is 7th class. 7th class is the heart of the 17025. Whatever laboratory activities are going to happen, this is the main class. So in the 7th class, first point is the review of request tenders and contracts. How the samples are received by the laboratory and how it is processed. Second class is the selection, verification and validation of methods. Third one is the sampling. Fourth one is handling of test and calibration items. Fifth one is the technical records. Sixth one is the evaluation of measurement uncertainty. Seventh one is ensuring the validity of test results. Eighth one is reporting of results. Ninth is compliance, non-conforming work, control of data and information management system. So there are 11 subclasses according to 7th, that is process requirements. So in the 11 classes, all the classes are very important. In the 7.1, it is talks about the review of request tenders and contracts. It is nothing but in the test request form, how they are submitting the samples. During the submissions, if there is any deviations or if there is any clarification, how the laboratory handles that type of things. If the sample is damaged, if the sample is insufficient, then what laboratory will do? If the customer is asking one test method, if it is not possible by the laboratory, then how it will be addressed. Those type of things has to be documented. And it should be established by the top management and it has to be followed by the laboratory personnel. So the 7.1 is talk about the review of request. Laboratory shall have a procedure to review of request, tenders and contracts. They have to document one procedure, how they are going to review the customer request, customer requirement, how it will be fulfilled. So what all are the conditions? How, whether you will accept the sample means on what condition you will accept the sample. If you are rejecting the sample or if you are not accepting the sample, what is the reason? How it is communicated to the customer? Those type of things has to be documented in 7.1. The laboratory shall inform the customer when the method requested by the customer is considered to be inappropriate. When the customer is asking one test method and the test method is not available or not performed by the laboratory, then that has to be communicated to the customer. So those type of things has to be documented according to 7.1. When the customer requests a statement of conformity, statement of conformity is nothing but whether the customer is giving one water sample and the customer is asking you whether it is drinkable or not, it is pass or fail, then that is the statement of conformity. If they are asking pass fail, a tolerance, then on what basis the laboratory is going to take the decision? Whether the requirement is given by the customer or the laboratory itself, the tolerance limit is available, or what is the case? How they will decide the pass or fail. That has to be clearly documented according to 7.1. In the 7.2 talks about the selection, verification and validation of test methods. Selection is what is the test method, how it is selecting the test method for the particular test. There are a lot of standard tests, international and international standards available. BAS methods, AETCC methods, ASTM methods, like the way. So the laboratory shall use appropriate and latest version of standards. It is very important. It is not asking only the use appropriate standards. It is asking about the appropriate latest version of standards. So latest version means latest publications should be available. Manuals, procedures for all lab activities. If they are, if it is in testing laboratory and internal calibration is they are performing, the reference material, the reference is in a manual. So the latest manual should be available to perform the activities. All shall be made available, readily available in personnel. In this case, the standard test method is available with the laboratory, but the laboratory is working in shifts. The standard test method is under the control of laboratory manager and he is working in first shift. And when he is leaving the office, he is locking in his cabin that standard test methods are available in his locker table and it is locked. How the second shift person or third shift person, if they are having some doubts about the test method, how they will do that, how they will perform the test. So that is the point. All shall be made readily available to personnel. So the laboratory management should ensure these type of things should not happen. The standard test methods has to be accessible all time by the relevant personnel. It is not by all personnel. Relevant personnel should have the access for the test methods or standards or manuals. Labs will verify that it can properly perform methods before introducing that it can achieving the required performance. That is nothing but a test method verification. If the laboratory is planning to introduce one test method in their laboratory, that is some AETCC test method, before introducing into the laboratory, the lab has ensured they are performing this activity in perfect manner. They are achieving the intended results. So for that activity, they have to perform the verification. Test method verification they have to do. And the method development shall be assigned to competent personnel. If the laboratory is developing their own method, then the test method development has to be performed by competent personnel. Competent person means again it is coming to the person should have the relevant qualification, the person should have the relevant education, the person should have the sufficient experience, they should have the skill, they should know the limitations of the product and the test. Then only the person is called as competent person. That type of persons only authorized to do the method development. And in case of labs, shall validate non-standard methods. If they are performing national or international standard methods, then it's okay. They have to perform the verification, then it can be implemented in the laboratory. But they are doing the non-standard test methods. In that case, laboratory in that non-standard test methods or laboratory won't develop standard test methods, standard test methods which is outside the intended scope, standard test methods of modified versions. All these methods can be validated. So what is modified test methods? If one BAS test method is asking you to perform 24 hours environmental conditions or humidity, that is conditioning. If you are doing some timing adjustments, that has to be validated. You should ensure your time adjustments, it is not adversely affect the test results. That type of validations you have to do, then only you can allow to do the changes. If the test method is asking you to perform the test by 37-degree temperature with 60 hours, but the laboratory is by trial and error method, they are adjusting some temperature and they are achieving the same results by 45-degree temperature with 16 hours or 10 hours. That has to be validated. That has to be performed in a effective way. They have to develop and they have to participate with the ILC or PT. Then only these methods has to be ensured that the results are getting correct. So that type of method validation has to be established. And in the 7.3, it is talking about the sampling. And many laboratories are confusing with this 7.3 with the test method sampling. This here the sampling is different. What the test method, it is a part of testing. Sampling during the testing, it is part of sampling. But 7.3, it is a different activity. It is whatever the laboratory is receiving from the customer, that sample is tested by the laboratory. In that case, this sampling is not applicable. What is it, in this case, what is the sampling? If the laboratories, if it is a manufacturing industry, that manufacturing industry is drinking water manufacturing industry. So the laboratory is going to the manufacturing industry and they are selecting their sample from thousands of bottles. From out of thousands of bottles, 10 bottles they are selecting for the testing, means that is called sampling. If it is an inspection activity, out of 1000 bales, they are selecting 10 bales for testing, means how they are going to select which first bale or second bale or first row or second row or which row they are selecting. That type of sampling is called in the 7.3 edition sampling. So it should not confused with the test method sampling and sample bulk sampling. The laboratory shall have a sampling plan and method when it carries out sampling of substances, materials or products for subsequent testing or calibrations. In the 7.4, it is talking about the handling of test and calibration items. So once the sample is received by the laboratory, how it will be handled from the receipt of the sample to disposal of the sample. In every stage, how it will be handled by the laboratory. For example, if one sample is given for the testing and the testing involved microbiological testing, chemical testing, analytical testing, mechanical testing. So how the sample testing flow starts? If the microbiological testing is involved, then without any contamination or without any, many people should not involve before testing of microbiological testing. So first test starts with the microbiological laboratory. Then only the samples should be forwarded to other departments. That type of sampling should be documented, that type of handling of test items should be documented by the laboratory. For example, if it is formaldehyde test, the sample is given for the formaldehyde test and the testing is involved for the mechanical and chemical, and first the sample is taken in the mechanical department, the formaldehyde test will be get affected. So that time, for that type of test, what is the precautions the laboratory should take? So they should inform the laboratory that they should inform to the customer, for the formaldehyde test they have to provide a separate sample. So for formaldehyde test, the laboratory should perform the test without any disturbance from other that type of handling of test items, that procedure has to be established by the laboratory. It should not affect, one action should not affect the other action. And it is not only the handling of test during the testing. After testing, how it will be retained for the period, whether it is 1 week or 1 month or 3 months, or according to the customer requirement, how much time it is fixed, that type of things, how they are going to retain the samples, storing the samples without, if the customer is asking for the retest, so the sample is not retained in a proper manner, that will affect the retest results. So what is the plan? What they are going to do? How they are maintaining the samples in a storing in the samples. So precautions shall be taken to avoid deteriorations, contaminations, loss or damage to the item during handling, transporting, storing, waiting and preparation of the testing. These all are to be properly documented in the 7.4. And in the process requirement 7.5 clauses talks about the technical records. In the technical records, sometimes the people what they are doing the titrations. During the titrations, the value is 12.5. They are simply writing in a paper or in a hand. Then they are performing the duplicate or triplicate estimations. They are simply noting it on somewhere. And sometimes after some time, due to these solvents, acetone or something, the results will be get changed. That is, it is not clear. So it is 12.5 or 12.7 or 22.7, the person will forgot what is that. So the laboratory has developed what is the method, how to control that type of unwanted activities. So they have to develop how, while performing the test, how the results are entered, how it ensures the correct results are handled by the analyst. It includes results, reports, date, and identity of the personnel responsible for each laboratory activity and checking the data and results. So during that time, the job cards has provided during the estimation itself, they have to immediately enter the results into the job card. So that is the best practice. That type of data has to be maintained by the laboratory. It is called as a raw data. That type of activities has to be documented and it has to be communicated to the concerned persons. It has to be implemented in an effective way. Then only the results will be accurate. And it is not only the results, technical records asks about the results, reports, date and identity of the personnel. Who did the activity? Sampling, who did the sampling? Who performs the testing? Who reviewed the results? Who authorized the results? Those type of personnel to be identified. And the date, which date the sampling starts, which date the results released. If it is 30 days test, when it starts, when it is completed, that type of tracking should be there. That is called technical records, maintaining technical records. And original observations, data and calculations shall be recorded at the time they made. So whenever they are performing the test, whenever they are performing the calibrations, their observations, immediately it has to be documented into the job card or worksheet, whatever. And shall be identifiable with the specific task. Who did the, which activity is done by whom on what date. That type of things. And 7.6 is talks about the evaluation of measurement uncertainty. So for the measurement uncertainty on what all are the cases we are going to calculate the measurement uncertainty. There are two types of testing. One is qualitative analysis and one is quantitative analysis. In the qualitative analysis, the laboratory is going to give pass or fail, or present or absent. In that case, measurement uncertainty is not applicable. If it is measurements involved, that is values involved, it is that results giving in a quantifiable manner, then the measurement uncertainty has to be calculated. For measurement uncertainty, the lab has to identify what all are the critical parameters involved in the testing. First, they have to identify the points, then they have to calculate the measurement uncertainty budget. So the laboratory performing testing shall evaluate measurement uncertainty. The laboratory shall identify the contributions, that is critical contributions to measurement uncertainty. What all are the critical contributions to the measurement uncertainty? So in what all are the cases, why we have to calculate the, why the laboratory should calculate the measurement uncertainty? If the laboratory is asking for the pass-fail, the customer is asking for you the statement of conformity. For example, one water sample is given for the testing laboratory and they have to calculate, they have to estimate the hardness. And the customer is asking you whether the sample is pass or fail for the hardness. So the sample is given to the laboratory and the test result is, for example, the hardness is 10.5. The customer is saying that if the result is less than 10, you give me pass, or otherwise you give me fail. So the laboratory is performing the test and the value is 10.5, what they are achieving is 10.5, and this case, what decision will be taken? So whether it is pass or fail. 10 means the customer is giving less than 10 pass, about 10 fail. So in this case, what the laboratory should take the decision? That type of decision has to be taken by considering the measurement uncertainty. So it is not possible by any laboratory to achieve the same results. That is, it may be get 10.5 again, or it may not get 10.5 again. It may be 10.4, or it may be 10.6, or it may be 11. So they have to identify what is their level for hardness testing. What is their expected that is deviations, errors. That type of things has to be calculated, and that type of things has to be incorporated during taking the decisions. That is the point. So in the 7.7, it is talking about the ensuring validity of results. All the laboratories, it is the main point, if the laboratory is having effectively implemented in this point, that is ensuring the validity of results, it is not applicable to all the laboratories. The laboratory has to take their own, what all are the activities they are performing, what all are the tests they are performing. Based on their activities, they have to select out of these things, and 50% of the mandatory points, remaining points are up to them to decide whether it is applicable or not. But nowadays, all the assessors are insisting all the laboratories to do all the activities. It is not applicable to all the points to all the laboratories. So they are giving these all are the points in the ensuring validity of results. The standard mentioned use of reference materials or quality control materials. That is, reference materials means RM or CRMs. Use of alternative instruments that has been calibrated to provide traceable results. The equipment, if the laboratory is having 2 pH meters, then it is possible. They can check the same sample in 2 pH meters, and they can ensure both the equipments are giving same results. The results are comparable, like the way. If the laboratory is having only one equipment, how the laboratory fulfills this point? So it is up to the laboratory to decide what all are the activities are applicable to them. They have to follow. So that third point is the functional checks of measuring and testing equipments. And fourth point is the use of check or working standards. That is, if the laboratory is involved in the analytical parameters, then they are preparing their primary standards to secondary standard to working standards. So they have to establish one procedure how they are going to perform, how they are ensuring that the preparation is okay. So those type of procedures has to be established, and it has to be implemented, it has to be followed. Intermediate checks of measuring equipments. Intermediate of checks means the laboratory is performing calibration once in a year. So before that once in a year, they have to break the calibration that their equipment is working perfectly. So at least 6 months once, minimum it is 6 months once, they have to perform the intermediate checks of their equipments. So replicate testing and retesting, it is nothing but an reproducibility and repeatability. Repeatability and reproducibility, the person is, today I am doing the testing. If I am doing the same sample, tomorrow means whether I am getting the same results or different results. If there is the difference, then how much is the difference? If I am doing the testing today and one of my colleague also doing the same sample today or tomorrow, between both of us, what is the difference? Whether we are getting the same results, or what is the difference between both of us? So that is replicate testing and retesting. What is the difference? What is the criteria? What is the allowable limit? That type of things has to be followed. Correlation of results for different characteristics of items. Review of reported results. Many of the laboratories are not doing these things. This is an important one. If they are performing this in a very good manner, then they can identify their gaps. So once the report is released, they can pick at least 10% of test reports month-wise or weekly-wise. They have to check. The 17025 reporting of results, they have mentioned around 15 to 20 parameters. What all are the parameters should be available in the test reports. They have to they can prepare one checklist. With that checklist, they have to check what is the report released, whether it meeting the requirement as per 17025 or not. That is review of reported results. Already released test reports, they have to verify. Intra-laboratory comparisons, in the terms and definitions we have seen. Intra-laboratory means within the laboratory. If there is 2 departments and both are having pH meter, but they are involved in the different testing, but the equipment is same. So one sample, both the department has to perform the test and they have compare what is the result. That is called intra-laboratory. And inter-laboratory, we know that 2 or more laboratory, the sample has to should be forwarded to 2 and more laboratories. They have to perform the test and they have to give the results. They have it has to be statistically evaluated, judge score or something. So based on that, the laboratory performance is calculated. Testing of blind samples. Testing of blind sample is also not applicable to all the laboratories. It is for taking one sample without knowing the results. It has to be given to 2 or 3 analysts. The 2 or 3 analysts has to perform the result test and they have to give the results. Then we have to calculate what is the difference between the 3 persons. That is called blind sample testing. And participation in proficiency testing or inter-laboratory comparison. It is almost all the laboratories are performing. It is applicable to testing laboratory and it is applicable to calibration laboratories also. What is the criteria for participating in the PT? The laboratory should select a competent laboratory. Competent PT provider. What is competent PT provider? What is the criteria for the competent PT provider? Nowadays, if the PT provider is an accredited PT provider, then it is a competent PT provider. So that type of things has to be followed. Participation in PT is not a big thing. Participation in a competent PT provider, that will give you a value to your results. And interlaboratory comparisons also. If the PT is not available, then only laboratories are allowed to do the interlaboratory comparison. If the PT providers are available, first preference is to the competent PT providers. Second only, if the competent PT provider is not available, but they are conducting the PT, then it is okay. Second, PT providers, they can participate. If the PT provider is not also, it is also not available, then only they, second point, they can participate with the interlaboratory comparison. With other laboratory is initiating, then I can participate. That is third one. Fourth one is, there is no, I have not received any ILC invitation. Then what is the case? That time I can initiate the ILC. I have to forward the samples to other laboratories, then I have to calculate the judge score. That is the last case. So, according to me, ensuring the validity of results, if the laboratories are following in a very good manner, then they are not worried about the test results. And the 7.8 is talking about the reporting of results. Results shall be reviewed and authorized prior to release. After performing the results, whatever test is carried out, the report, once the report is prepared, the competent person, the person should have knowledge about the testing, product, results, everything. That person has to review the result, review the report, everything is okay or not. Then only the authorized person should release the report. That is the requirement of 17025 according to this 7.8. And 7.9 is talking about the complaint. Once the complaint, the laboratory is receiving any complaint, how the complaint, what is the requirement? According to 17025, the laboratory shall practice. So in this class 7.9, what they are asking, the complaint has to be received by the laboratory means first they have to validate whether it is belongs to their complaint or it is an invalid complaint. If it is belongs to their activity, then they have to do the analysis, complaint analysis. So the laboratory shall have a documented process to receive, evaluate and make decisions on the complaints. The laboratory shall have a procedure, documented procedure or a process, flowchart, anyway, they have to document. What is the process? If once a complaint is received, how they will going to handle the complaint. Once the complaint is analyzed and it is evaluated, yes, it is the problem of the laboratory, then what they will do? What is the next point for the complaint? If, once the laboratory is received a complaint about the test results, the results is wrong, then the laboratory is analyzing the complaint, yes, what they did was the wrong, now they are getting a different results. At this stage, what they are going to do or what they will do, that type of things has to be documented. And it has to be informed to the client that this is the complaint conclusion. That type of things has to be documented. Once all the process are over, that has to be communicated to the complainant. After everything has to be documented. That has to be reviewed by one third person. The person should not involved in any of the activity. The third person, individual person, has to approve, review and approve. Yes, the laboratory is handling the complaint in a impartial way. It is okay. Like the way the review has to be documented and it has to be available. And in one more point, if anyone asking the complaint resolution process, the laboratory keep it ready, and when on request, they have to share the documents to the person who are asking the complaint process. That is the 7.9. It is asking about the complaints. And in the 7.10, non-conforming work. And according to me, many of the laboratories are having troubles to understanding about this non-conforming work. There are misunderstanding with this non-conformances, that is NCs, which is raised during the internal audit or external audit. In this class 7.10, what it is asking is non-conforming work. Non-conforming work means lab shall have a procedure that shall be implemented when any aspect of its laboratory activities or results of this work do not conform to its own procedure. That is called non-conforming work. For example, I am having a 10 analysts today. So 10 analysts are performing a same activity, same sample, but one result I am getting is different. Then that is called non-conforming activity. I should take care. Why? The same sample, 10 analysts are performing, one result is giving different result. Whether it can be a personal problem by personal, whether it can be a problem in the equipment, whether it can be a problem in the environment, I have to identify what is the problem. That type of procedures they have to establish. In what all are the ways they will identify the non-conforming work. For example, I am saying if I am getting a regular customer submitting the sample and for the example of pH. So for the particular customer, the sample results will not go 7.3 to 8. So whenever they are submitting the sample, that is the results. As a supervisor, I know these are the results for that particular. The analyst will not know the customer details. So once I am receiving the result, that time I am receiving 10.8 as a pH value. Then I should be careful why it is coming 10.8. Normally this customer result will not come this. Or sometimes if it is an bandage cloth, medical product, the test results is showing 11 or 10, then it is a non-conforming work. We have to check whether the results are right or wrong. Whether it can be a personal problem, whether it can be a product that is sample problem, it can be a testing problem, test method, or it can be environmental condition. So the person should aware what is non-conforming work. Then they have to identify what is the cause, what is the correction, what is the corrective action, everything. So that is called non-conforming work. So for the 7.11, it is talking about the control of data information management system. That is laboratory information management system, nothing but an LIMS. So the control of data. Control of data is nothing but the raw data which is produced during the testing or calibration activities. And the labs shall have access to the data and information needed to perform laboratory activities. And the laboratory information management system used for collection, processing, recording, reporting, storage or retrieval of data shall be validated for functionality before introduction. This is nothing but an LIMS, and if the LIMS is developed by the laboratory, then it has to be validated. If the laboratory is purchasing the LIMS outside, then the validation is not applicable, because it is a commercial LIMS. It has to be after validation only it comes into the outside sales. So this is the point. If it is an they are using the LIMS, what is the requirement according to 17021? How the data are controlled, raw data, everything. If they are using the software, in the software how it is controlled. So that type of things. If the laboratory developed their own LIMS, if there is any change in the LIMS, then again it has to be validated by the laboratory. Then only it will give the exact result. It will be allowed to use by the end users. So this is about the process requirements. In the class 8, it talks about the management system requirements, that is MSR requirements. In this class also, it is an 9 classes. It is 8.1 to 8.9. This is the management system requirements. 8.1 talks about the options. That is, there are two options, option 1 and option 2. Option 1, if the laboratory is already established their ISO 9001, then some classes are they don't, whatever documents available in the 9001, it is applicable to the 17025 also. And 8.2 talks about the management system documentation. 8.3 talks about the control of management system documents. Then the 8.4 is for the control of records. And 8.5 talks about the actions to address risk and opportunities. In the version, this is 17025 2017 version. In the earlier version of 2005, there was one class that is called preventive action. During the revision of the 2017, preventive action was removed by the standard committee. Instead of that preventive action, they have introduced one new word, that actions to address risk and opportunities. So after this 8.6, it is an improvement. 8.7 is the corrective actions, and 8.8 is the internal audits. 8.9 talks about the management reviews. So I have already informed that in the options 8.1 there are two options. If the already 9001 is established, many classes are whatever the documents it is available in the 9001, it is applicable to 17021. 9001 it is not implemented the 9001, then these all are the documents they have to maintain. That is 8.2 to 8.9 they have to maintain. 8.2 talks about the management system documentation. This is nothing but many laboratories called it as an quality manual or management system manual or QMS, quality management system manual. So whatever they want, they can keep the name. The standard is not asking about the manual. The thing is, it is up to the laboratory to make it a manual or not make it a manual. But the thing is, whatever it is mandatory, that has to be available in any form. That was the point. So the laboratory management shall establish, document and maintain policies and objectives for fulfillment of the purpose of this document. Policies and objectives shall address the competence, impartiality and consistent operation of the laboratory. Again and again it is talking about the competence. So 17025 is competence, impartiality and consistent operation of the laboratory. These are the 3 points the laboratory has to maintain. So control of management system, that is 8.3 talks about the control of management system documents. How that document is established. Who is responsible to create the document? Once the document is created, who is going to review? Once the review is done, who is going to approve? Then how it is implemented? Who is issuing the document for the implementation? That type of controls has to be established and it has to be followed. The laboratory shall control both internal and external documents. What is internal document and what is the external documents? What all are the records and documents the laboratory prepares? That is called as internal documents. Except these things, everything is called as the external documents. What all are some examples for the external documents? For example, 17025 is then standard, it is an external document. The standard test methods, that is Bureau of Indian Standard Test Method, BIS standards, ISO standards, AATCC standards, ASTM standards, or ISO IEC standards, BSEN standards, the manuals or the softwares, everything. If it comes outside, then it is called the external documents. So the laboratory should establish a control how they are maintaining the internal documents, how they are controlling the internal documents, how they are controlling the external documents, who all are responsible, to whom it will be available. It is not meaning that everything is available with everyone. The concerned persons shall be accessible to the concerned documents. That is the control. So the laboratory shall approve and periodically review all the documents. It is not meaning that once the document is created in a very good manner, if I'm going to I'm going to apply with the 17025 with one accreditation body, I have prepared a very good manual, so now I have established and I implemented. It is not meaning that it is a one-time activity. After some time, I have to review because my people are changing, standards are changing, equipment is changing, calibration status is changing. So based on the changes, we have to review the documents, we have to review the records, we have to review our system wherever necessary, we have to make changes accordingly. While the changes, we should ensure the integrity of the test results, it should not be changed. That is the point. So control of records. So that was the technical records. What all are the technical records? It has to be maintained. So this is control of records. How the laboratory management system establishes the procedure to control the records. Labs shall establish and retain legible records and shall implement the controls needed for the identification, storage, protection, backup, achieve, retrieval, retention time, and disposal of its records. So this is many laboratories, they are developing one master list. Everything it is available when it was prepared, that is issue number, issue date, revision number, revision date, retention time, and location to whom it is available. And if it is properly implemented, if it is effectively implemented, then the retrieval time, it should not take more than 1 minute. I have faced this type of problems with some laboratories that their retrieval is not effective because they don't know where it is the document, with whom it is available. That is the point. So if they are having this type of document, who is the responsible person, with which location it is available, then the retrieval will be easy. So that type of control of records the laboratory management should establish, and it has to be effectively implemented. 8.5 is talks about the actions to address risk and opportunities. In the risk and opportunities, earlier it was nothing but a preventive action. The laboratory has to identify the problems before it happens. Then they have to identify the cause that has to be eliminated. Then they have to document everything. That is called preventive action. In the 2017 version, the preventive action was removed. Instead of preventive action, it is now called as actions to address risk and opportunities. So the laboratory has to identify what all are the risks involved in the testing, or what all are the risk involved in the calibration. Risk based on the personnel involved, risk based on the equipments they are handling, risk based on the calibrations, risk based on the external provided products and services. So every point, according to 17025, what all are the classes, what all are the subclasses, they have to identify what all are the risk associated with all the activities. So actions to, first they have to identify the risk. Based on the risk they have identified, they have to prepare one risk matrix. Whether the risk is low risk or it is an high risk. Whether it is a technical risk or it is a financial risk. That type of identification they have to establish. Based on that, they have to maintain one, they have to calculate one risk matrix. Based on the risk matrix, the solution has to be identified. That is elimination of the risk, or transfer of the risk, or mitigation of the risk. That type of things has to be documented, eliminated, periodically reviewed, and it has to be whenever required, it has to be updated. So 8.6 is talks about the improvement. Labs shall identify and select opportunities for improvement and implement necessary actions. Opportunities can be identified through the review of operational procedures, the use of policies, overall objectives, audit results, corrective actions, management review, suggestions from personnel, risk assessment, analysis of data, and PT results. It is a very good class that if the analysis, for example, it is in customer satisfaction in customer feedback. If the laboratory is implementing a customer feedback process, then they have to identify the customer feedback. They have to calculate one customer satisfaction index. For the year of 2024, they have achieved 80% of customer satisfaction index. And the 2025, the customer satisfaction index was 65. What is the reason? The laboratory should analyze what is the reason behind. Earlier it was 80, now it is 65. What is the reason? They have to address the risk. What is the problem? So they have to calculate, they have to analyze. It is a very good opportunity. That is, it is a very good class. If the laboratory is following this, all these things, that is customer feedback, it can be, it is, if it is in increase, then it is okay. It is a growing manner. But if it is a negative point, that is 65, they have to analyze what is the point, where it is problem. If it is a PT result, so in the past 5 years of PT results, they can, for example, I am saying, they have to analyze the past 5 years PT results. For example, the particular test, every time they are out of results, that is the PT judge score is outlier, above 3. Then they have to take, they have to identify what is the problem. Even in the initial stage itself, the PT results of outlier, then they have to they have to identify the root cause and they have to eliminate that. That is okay. The trend, in which test they are having a good strength, in which test they are having a weakness. That type of strength and weakness can be analyzed through PT participations, even in the customer feedback, through complaint analysis, in the risk assessment, even in the internal audits. Internal audits also they have to analyze for the improvements. And the management reviews. And the corrective actions, whatever external NCs are raised, what all are the NCs and what all are the corrective actions they have implemented. That type of analysis should give you the improvement things. Overall objectives. What is the 2024's objective the laboratory achieved? What will be the 25th year's objective? What was the 2020 objective? That type of analysis has to be taken care by the laboratory, and it has to be one of the improvement points. 8.7 is talking about the corrective action, and there are 2 points. One is correction, one is corrective action. The correction is once the problem is happened, that is immediate action is taken by the laboratory, means that is correction to rectify immediate problem. That is once the problem was happened, immediately any action is taken, that is called correction. But to avoid the same type of problem in the future, what effort has to be taken? So we have to analyze what is the root cause, what is the problem, then the problem has to be resolved. That is called corrective action. So when a non-conformity occurs, the laboratory shall react to the non-conformity and as applicable take action and correct it. So there are 2 points, one is correction and one is corrective action. Action taken immediately to arrest the problem, action proposed to avoid the same kind of problem in the future, that is called corrective actions. So for example, if there is an NC in the external audit or internal audit, for example, the equipment is not calibrated. So immediate action is the laboratory has to calibrate the equipment immediately. That is called correction. For the next year, it should not happen again. So for that, what they have to do? They have to follow one schedule. That has to be reviewed monthly or 3 months once or weekly. That is the corrective action. So that type of things has to be established and it has to be implemented properly. So 8.8 is talking about the internal audit. So in the internal audit, the lab has to prepare one procedure. What is the procedure? What is the interval? What is the time frequency for conducting the internal audit? The standard is saying that it has to be conducted. Normally, the laboratories are following once in a year. Management review and internal audits, they are conducting once in a year. So the standard is asking, the mandatory requirement of this standard is that internal audit shall be conducted at a planned intervals. So the laboratory shall develop a procedure. What is the period? Internal audit period. What is the procedure? Who is conducting the internal audit? Once the non-conformance is identified, how it is communicated, what is the point, how it will eliminate, what all are the things, how it is communicated to the top management. Everything has to be documented in this internal audit class. Labs shall plan, establish, implement and maintain an audit program, including the frequency, methods. What is the method they are going to conduct the internal audit? Responsibilities. Who all are responsible for the internal audit? Planning requirements and reporting, to whom they are going to report the internal audit. These all are the requirements for the 17025. According to this requirement, lab has to develop one procedure how they are going to conduct the internal audit. That is the requirement of 8.8. In the 8.9, that is management system requirements. So in the management review, as per according to 17025, management review meeting has to be conducted within a year. That is 12 months period they have to conduct the management review. So normally the laboratories are performing the management review. Once the internal audit was happened, then they are conducting the management review. Once the external audit was happened, that their management review is conducted. How they are conducting? What is the method? What is the plan? What is the interval? Everything has to be documented in the management review. It is the requirement of 17021. So how they are conducting the management review? Who all are the participants? Those things has to be documented in the management review. According to the standard, all the key managerial persons, technical persons, key technical persons, they has to attend the management review. The management review has to be chaired by one person. Then the members of the management review meetings, who all are going to participate in the management review. How it is communicated to persons. What is the agenda? What all are the points has to be discussed during the management review. Everything is available. Everything is given in the standard in the 8.9 class. So, laboratory management shall review its management system at planned intervals. It is not, in the standard, it is not given 12 months or these things. So, it is, the intervals has to be maintained by them. At least once in a year, they have to conduct the management review, and once in a year, they have to conduct the internal audits. So, for the inputs of the management review, what all are the agenda points should be discussed. These all are the mandatory points has to be discussed during the management review. That is, changes in internal and external issues that are relevant to the laboratory activities, fulfillment of the objectives, suitability of the policies and procedures, outcome of recent internal audits, corrective actions, assessment of external bodies, changes in the volume and type of the work are in the range, customer and personal feedback, compliance, effectiveness of any implemented improvements, adequacy of resources, results of risk identifications, outcome of the assurance of the validity of results, other relevant factors such as monitoring activities. So if we see, almost all the critical class points has to be, all are the inputs of the management review meeting. What is the feedback? What is the customer satisfaction index? What all are the complaints? How many complaints are serious? So what is the complaints conclusion? So everything has to be discussed during the management review meeting. So every key personnel, they should aware what is going on. What is the next stage? So these all are the serious issue means what is the action proposed by persons? Who is responsible for that activity? What is the target date? Everything has to be discussed during the management review meeting. And whatever NCs raised during the internal audit, what is the corrective actions? During the external audit, what is the NCs? So, in the past cycles, what all are the external NCs? Whether it is continuing or it is a new different NCs. Those type of things has to be discussed during the management review meeting. It is not only the technical points. What is the objectives? What is the policies? Whether the policies and objectives are okay, or whether it has to be revised, or it needs updates. So, the policies, objectives, customer feedback, compliance, internal and external audits, improvement points, results about the PT and ILC participations, everything has to be discussed during the management review meeting. And all the key managerial persons and the technical managers or supervisors, everything has to be available. It is not only the things, resources, whatever resources are available. The resources means personnel and the equipments, whatever they are, whatever available, it is sufficient for the activity for the present scope. Or if the laboratory management is planning for the new scope, whether the existing is okay or it needs any additional resources, that is personnel wise or the equipment wise. So everything has to be discussed during the management review meeting. It is not only the discussion, it has to be documented. So what all are the agenda points they have discussed for that particular point, what is the action to proposed, and who is the person responsible for the activity, and who is the what is the target date. So these all are the points has to be documented. So important requirements up to 8.9, the 17025 standard is over. So what is the important points 17025 asking? What is the what we have to fulfill for these things? So it is asking about the qualified, trained and competent managers and technical staffs. This is the main point. Suitable calibrated equipment and accessories. Valid and suitable CRMs for testing and reference materials for calibrating equipments. Some people are in confusion that what is reference material and what is certified reference material. reference material, for example, if it is an analytical laboratory, so they are having the GCMS. For the calibration of GCMS, they need one reference material to check whether the equipment is working or not. That is called reference material. If it is an ICP-MS, so the tuning solution, that is called reference material to check the calibration status of the equipment. If it is an LCMS, the HPLC, the laboratory using an caffeine, that is reference material. What is the certified reference material? If the laboratory is performing an heavy metal analysis, so if they want to check the copper, estimation of copper, then the copper standard should be available with them. That is called certified reference material, which is used for testing. That material which is used for checking the calibration status, that is called reference material. So there are two different things. One is reference material, one is certified reference materials. So valid and suitable, it should not expired one. So valid reference material and certified reference material should be usable, and suitable CRMs should be usable. Retesting and replicate testing of test regularly, that is nothing but an internal quality checks. Retesting and replicate testing, other name is repeatability and reproducibility should be maintained. Participation in competent proficiency testing programs. So if these points are addressed in a proper way, then the laboratory is implemented their 17025 in an effective way. That is the point. So competence of the laboratory. How we can say the laboratory is competence? So in evaluating the competence of a laboratory, the following methods are used. On-the-spot assessment of the laboratory by the experts. That is nothing but a third party, that is accreditation body, NABL or IAS or FDS or QA. They are coming to the laboratory and they are assessing the competence of the laboratory. That is the one point. By evaluating the results of a particular test or measurement in a proficiency testing program. If the laboratory is participating with the PT, competent PT or PT or ILC, then the results are within the range. The judge score is okay, less than 2. Then the laboratory is considered as a competent laboratory. These all are the 2 points they have to concentrate mainly. The PT results, that is participation in many PT, will increase the laboratory's validity of the quality of the test results. So that is the main point. I think we are in the end of the session, and thank you all. Thanks for your attention for these 2 hours.